Welcome to our third and final podcast discussing the book of Ruth. Again, welcome, Rachel, Sharansky, Danziger. It's a pleasure to be able to have these conversations together with you.
It's definitely my pleasure as well.
We've been talking about the book of Ruth. We talked last time about Bethlehem, the people of Bethlehem, and especially Boaz. But there's one relationship, arguably the most important relationship in the book, that we haven't really focused on. That's the relationship between Ruth and her mother-in-law, Naomi. When Orpah decides to go back home and Ruth decides to go with her mother-in-law, the book uses a very strong term, Virut davka ba. The word davka, to cling, is a very, very strong word. You wouldn't expect that word. You'd say she went along, especially because Naomi didn't have much going for her then, and they were going back poor to Bethlehem. You'd say she followed along. What do you make of that strong language as kind of an introduction to the relationship between Ruth and Naomi?
I think that the word davka sends us right back to the very first relationship in the Torah, the relationship between Adam and Chava, the first two humans, and to Genesis 2, where man wakes up to find suddenly a woman next to him, and he says, "This time, bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh, this one shall be called woman because she was taken from man." And then the editor interrupts and says, "Al ken ya'azov ish et aviv ve'et imo, v'davak be'ishto v'hayu lebasar echad." Hence, a man leaves his father and mother and clings to his wife so that they become one flesh. This is obviously an interruption because Adam and Eve didn't leave their parents. They were the first humans. There's no parents to leave at this point. So the editor is kind of interrupting us to tell us this is the model. This moment where Adam sees Eve as somehow made of himself, is somehow close to him, is somehow flesh of his flesh, and clings onto her, is the model for all moments of men and women joining together to form new families for the rest of history. And when we're told that Ruth clings, davka, onto Naomi, it's almost as if the story tells us she's marrying her. I'm sorry, it's almost as if she's choosing her as her family. And she is leaving her mother and father and motherland and mother culture behind to create this new, very unusual, seemingly hopeless in the sense that there's no possible future for them. There's no continuity. There's no prosperity in store for them. They're just going into poverty together. And yet Ruth chooses this to be her future, this new and weird family that she's forming. And in a sense, I would almost say that by using this verb, lidvok, the story turns the relationship between Ruth and Naomi into a love story.
So, that's fantastic. And, the playback to Adam and Chava is extremely thought-provoking. I would say, couple of thoughts. Number one is maybe the only way to explain why Ruth chose to go back with Naomi is to explain it as a form of love. That kind of throws everything else to the wind and says, whatever will happen, will happen. I'm totally committed to you the way that a man and a woman are committed to one another. But the second thought I have is that it's interesting when they return to Bethlehem, again, hopelessly return to Bethlehem, the relationship between Ruth and Naomi seems to change in terms of its power dynamic, who the doer is in terms of the relationship. And that, Rachel, is not so surprising because I guess that's the way all v'davak be'ishto, all husband and life, all marriage, all love relationships are going to be like that. But especially you get that sense with Ruth and Naomi.
I absolutely agree. And I think it's very dramatic there because in the beginning, the only one who takes an active role in the relationship is Ruth. She's the one who insists on going with Naomi when Naomi keeps telling her, go back, go to your family. I don't have any sons. Look, Orpah left. Why don't you go like her? And Ruth says, no. And she says these beautiful words. She says, Al tifge'i bi le'ozvech lashuv me'acharayich. כי אל אשר תלכי אלך ובאשר תליני אלין. She says, do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you, for wherever you go, I will go, wherever you lodge, I will lodge. And it's not as if Naomi accepts it. Naomi doesn't say, okay, fine, you're right, or I love you too, or anything like that. It's more that she's resigned. She just accepts that she can't convince Ruth otherwise. And the story tells us that she sees how hard she insists upon joining her. ותחדל לדבר אליה. So she ceased to argue with her. And it's almost, if we talk about it in the language of a love story, it's almost as if Ruth's love is unrequited. Later, when they go to Bethlehem, we see that Naomi's passivity goes beyond that. It's not just that she's not responding to Ruth. She's also incapable of taking initiative. She's just sitting at home and doing nothing. And it's Ruth who says, let me go to the field and collect wheat for us. And again, Naomi doesn't really express enthusiasm. She just says, go, my daughter, lechi biti. And only later, when Ruth comes back and tells Naomi about what happened with Boaz, something shifts. And all of a sudden, Naomi, who until this point was, if to use modern terms, depressed, listless, is suddenly awakened. And she said, oh, bless God, I forgot. This man is a redeemer for us. Maybe we have a future. And this hope of future, this hope of a way forward, changes the dynamic between them. Because now Naomi is the one who guides Ruth. Yochi Brandes has a beautiful collection of essays called Seven Mothers, Sheva Imehot. And in her essay about Ruth, she points out that this is a rare instance where two women in the Bible, in the Tanakh, work together when it comes to a man. We have cases like Rachel and Leah fighting over Yaakov's love. We have cases like Hannah and Pnina being jealous of one another because of Elkanah's love to Hannah and Pnina's status as the fertile wife. We don't have so many cases of two women working together. But suddenly here, Naomi takes the role of mentor, and she guides Ruth, and she sends Ruth to the field to seduce, talk to Boaz, convince him to do the right thing, and take her under his protection and redeem her and the field and the continuity of Elimelech's family, in a sense. And we see that this active role, or the fact that Ruth accepts Naomi's leadership and agrees to go and do whatever she tells her to do, carries on to the end of the story when the women, when they congratulate Naomi and Ruth, they don't congratulate Ruth, actually. They congratulate Naomi. And they talk to Naomi and they tell her, Baruch Hashem asher lo hashbit lach goel hayom. Blessed be the Lord who has not withheld a redeemer from you today. And they mention Ruth. They say, כי כלתך אשר אהבתך ילדתו, אשר היא טובה לך משבעה בנים. For he is born to your daughter-in-law who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons. But when they talk about the baby, they don't say a baby was born to Ruth. They say a baby was born to Naomi. And it's almost as if the balance of power between Ruth and Naomi, when Ruth was the one pursuing and pushing and acting, changes, and suddenly Naomi is the one who's the whisperer behind the curtain. And the coup of the marriage between Ruth and Boaz is later at her door.
So that idea is really a beautiful idea, and it really it takes us through the book. But you mentioned in your discussion the idea that Naomi was a mentor to Ruth. And I just want to kind of focus on that just a little bit. And that is, it's a love story. It's a love story in a powerful way that, many male-female love stories in Tanakh are not, because male-female love stories in Tanakh are extremely complicated. And actually, Ruth and Naomi is not a complicated story in terms of their love. But it's not a story of equals. It's a story of a woman who has a lot of experience. Naomi comes back to Beit Lechem depressed, not because she's foolish, but because she gets it. Because she understands. She knew what it was like when things were good, and she knows the people. Ruth, she's an amateur. She's a freshman, right? We would call it in sports. She's a rookie. She doesn't get it. And what's fascinating is it's because she doesn't get it that she saves the day. Means if she got it, then she would have stayed home and been depressed with her mother-in-law. But the fact that she's a rookie and she doesn't get it and she doesn't understand really what the people of Beit Lechem are like, she says, no, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to change society. And then all of a sudden, when she comes back with the news that it's Boaz, and all of a sudden the woman with experience, then, her wheels start turning, and she understands that it's all going to work out. So she rises to the occasion. And I think that really makes it an amazingly powerful love story, in the fact that each one of them brings their power and their skill. Without Ruth's rookiness, without her kind of irresponsibility of not understanding the situation, nothing would have happened. They would have kind of understandably sat at home together, eating nothing and being depressed. But without Naomi's veteran nature, her experience, the fact that she understood the situation, the fact that when push came to shove at the end, she knew how to, we would say today, clinch the deal with Boaz, that she made it happen. And I think that, just following on your idea on what this kind of unique love story is all about, I think that really kind of sharpens it and kind of brings into focus what their relationship was all about.
First of all, I think I totally agree that they complement each other, and neither of them could have succeeded without the other. And you see it especially when you understand, and I didn't understand it until reading the book many, many times, that Ruth spent almost half a year in Boaz's field, and he never made any proposal to her. Only later, when the time of reaping was over, and they saw that nothing came out of it, Naomi said, okay, now here's what we're going to do. You're going to go to him at night, etc., etc., etc. So in other words, Ruth couldn't have done it on her own. As much as she inspired him to show her a unique kindness, she didn't, in fact, inspire him to take initiative and initiate marriage. She needed Naomi to orchestrate that for her. But it's not only that they complement each other and what they bring into their relationship, it's also that they have a shared goal. And I think that's a key difference between Ruth and Naomi's love story. And I just want to clarify that I don't mean it as a romantic love, that they're in love with each other and desire each other, or an erotic love. I just mean love on a much bigger scale, that in the sense of a soul that clings to another, a human being that cares and wants the well-being of another and is willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. One of the things that makes their love story succeed, where a lot of tragic love stories in the Tanakh fail, is that they're working towards a goal that's bigger than themselves. It's not just that they're working towards survival. It's not just that they're working towards prosperity. Ruth is working to make Naomi's life better, and Naomi is working to make Ruth's life better, but also to make sure that Ruth has a future, has a family, and that her family, Naomi's original family, is continued through her. And I think that perhaps if we go back all the way to the beginning of our first conversation and to what starts the Megillah, which is a moment when people become selfish and focused on their own interests, what ends the Megillah, or what brings it to its happy ending, is when two women to be exact, think beyond their own interests and care for each other more than they necessarily care for themselves at this particular moment.
And it's that lesson, it's that message that allows for the restoration of society. An idea that at the beginning of the book seems so impossible. And it's really the relationship of Ruth and Naomi that makes it possible, makes it happen. And of course, that's why, even though at the end of the book, somehow a book that's very feminine turns very masculine, and men give birth to men, give birth to men. But the idea that a restoration of society carries with it the light of the Messiah, I think is the best blessing that the author of the book could possibly give to the story, to the relationship between Ruth and Naomi. Rachel, it's really been a treat to be able to talk about just a few of the ideas. There's so much more. It's such an amazingly rich book. But thank you so much for participating. And I look forward to continuing our conversation on many other books of Tanakh in future weeks and months. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really been my pleasure and my honor.